Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive all about smart practices.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going way deeper than just setting those typical SMART goals that everybody knows.
Right.
We're really going to explore smart shepherding, using it as like a framework for how we think about ourselves and all the complexity in our lives, personal and professional.
Absolutely. And it's so fascinating how this acronym SMART pops up everywhere. You've got self-monitoring, analyzing and reporting technology. But then, of course, there's the specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
Exactly. And today we're going to take that acronym and extend it even further.
Okay.
We're going to apply it to adult development, professional development, and even system maturity.
Wow.
Think about those complex combinations of social and technical elements.
Because let's face it, whether we're talking about our own personal growth or how an organization evolves, we're dealing with complex systems, and that's where smart shepherding can really help us.
Yeah, it can give us those principles to move through that complexity.
Guide us.
Yeah, and we've got a really diverse set of sources for this deep dive today.
Oh, cool.
We've got articles about smart principles. Personal reflections on applying those principles to some really tough challenges.
Yeah.
And even some connections to neuroscience and spirituality.
I love it.
Yeah. So it's going to be a really interesting exploration.
So one of the things that really came out of these sources was this idea of smart shepherding as a way to kind of shepherd ourselves, our projects, even entire systems towards this greater maturity and effectiveness.
Yeah, it's not just about, like you said, checking things off a list. It's about that growth and evolution.
It really is a mindset for growth, especially when you think about how complex these systems are.
Absolutely. And to kind of illustrate this, one author uses this beautiful metaphor of the bird in the heart.
I love that.
So imagine an elephant, strong and grounded, representing that stability and practicality.
Okay, got the elephant.
All right. Picture a wise bird perched on top of the elephant.
All right.
Symbolizing that broader perspective, the ability to see the big picture.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So it's about finding that balance between being grounded and practical, like the elephant, but also being able to soar above and see things from that wider perspective, like the bird.
I love that.
And then the heart represents the author's emphasis on intention.
Right.
So it's not enough to just be practical or wise. We also need to be driven by that genuine desire to do good.
Yes.
To make a positive impact.
Because without that heart, without those genuine intentions, we can go astray, even with the best plan.
So, listener, as we go through these sources today, keep that image in mind.
Yeah.
Where's your elephant? Where's your bird, and what's guiding them?
That's a good question.
Yeah, wisdom of the heart.
Speaking of guidance, another one of our sources had this really interesting critique of the M for measurement in SMART.
Okay.
They actually argue that all of the M's can be wrong.
Whoa, hold on. How can measurement be wrong?
Well,
isn't that the whole point of SMART?
Right.
To have those concrete metrics to track progress.
Well, this author is saying that any metric that we use is inherently imperfect.
Okay.
And that if we cling too tightly to those measurements, we can actually stifle creativity and adaptability.
So it's like we're trying to force a square peg into a round hole.
Yeah.
We're using this rigid measurement when what we really need is flexibility and nuance.
Yeah, you got it. And they're talking about using those measurements as feedback, like a compass to guide us rather than a rigid roadmap.
Okay, so instead of being fixated on hitting a specific number, it's more about using those numbers to learn and adjust course as we go.
Exactly. And this actually brings us to another really fascinating concept.
Okay.
The Procrustean world. So you remember Procrustes from Greek mythology?
Yeah.
He was this, we'll say, insistent host.
Yeah, insist.
He had an iron bed, and he really believed that everyone should fit in it perfectly.
Yeah, if you were too tall, he'd chop off your legs.
Exactly.
And if you were too short, he'd stretch you out.
Ouch.
Not the most hospitable guy.
Not at all. But sadly, some systems and some leaders operate with a very similar mindset.
Right.
These rigid rules, ignoring individual needs and forcing everyone to conform.
Like a one-size-fits-all.
Yes, exactly. And it really can stifle growth and innovation.
So how does smart shepherding help us in these Procrustean situations?
Well, it's about recognizing that being strategic doesn't mean blindly following the plan.
Go ahead.
It's about being adaptable and willing to modify our approach within the constraints.
So it's like finding that sweet spot between working within the rules, but still being true to our purpose and our own unique way of doing things.
Exactly. And this becomes even more important in today's world.
Right.
Where we are just bombarded with information and misinformation and conflicting viewpoints.
It's like we're all walking a tightrope trying to stay balanced amidst all the chaos.
It really is. We're constantly trying to figure out what's real, what's true, what matters.
And that's why smart self-reflection is so vital.
Absolutely.
It's about questioning our own assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
being open to different viewpoints.
Yes.
And using what one author called our justice compass to kind of guide us.
So it's not about finding the truth.
Right.
It's about finding our truth, recognizing that there are multiple perspectives out there.
And making sure that we're not falling prey to biases or echo chambers.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that inner awareness.
Yeah.
That ability to look at information critically and make choices that align with our values.
Like developing our own inner compass.
Yeah.
That sense of discernment to help us navigate this complex world.
I like that. And on that note, another source really emphasized the need to embrace chaos.
Embrace chaos.
Yes.
Now that sounds kind of counterintuitive.
I know, right?
Aren't we always striving for order and stability?
Well, of course, but this author argues that rigid systems eventually break down.
Okay.
They become brittle and unable to adapt to change. And that's where facing what they call legacy issues head on, fostering awareness and gleaning insights from the chaos becomes crucial.
This is not about creating chaos. It's about learning to navigate it effectively.
Exactly. And recognizing that it can actually be a catalyst for growth and innovation.
And this idea of embracing discomfort ties in really nicely with another key point that came up.
Which is?
The importance of integrating empathy into the design process.
Yes.
Whether we're designing a product, a system, or even just how we approach interactions with other people.
Because without understanding the needs and desires of others, even the most quote-unquote smart solution can fail.
Absolutely. And on that note of compassion and understanding, one of our sources was reflecting on the practice of fasting.
Okay.
And highlighted how it's not only about self-control, but also about cultivating empathy for those who are suffering.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that our actions, even those that seem personal, can have a ripple effect on the world around us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really does make you think about that interconnectedness, doesn't it?
It does.
How even our smallest choices can have an impact. And one source actually brought up this idea of smart contracting.
Oh, interesting.
So using those principles, but in decision-making.
Okay.
Especially when things get tough.
So how did they apply that?
Well, this author was actually traveling.
Okay.
And they were on a flight and glanced at the screen, that shows the flight path. And they saw something that really mirrored a significant image from their own past.
Wow.
And it made them really reflect on, is this just coincidence or is this something more?
Yeah, is the universe trying to tell you something?
Right. And it raises that question of, do we just brush those things off as random chance?
Yeah.
Or do we see them as opportunities to kind of go deeper and learn?
I like that.
So this author actually used that experience to delve into the differences between Eastern and Western thought.
Oh, wow.
About the nature of reality and the power of intention.
So it became a catalyst for self-discovery.
Yeah, exploring those different ways of knowing and being in the world.
It's amazing how something so small can shift your perspective.
It really is.
And speaking of deeper meaning,
another
author explored this concept of smart grandfathering.
Smart grandfathering.
Okay. So applying the SMART principles, but to legacy systems.
Okay.
Particularly in the pharmaceutical industry.
So thinking about how those long-standing practices can be both beneficial, but also potentially limiting.
Right, because sometimes those tried and true methods can actually hinder innovation.
Exactly. And in pharmaceuticals especially, where safety is so crucial.
Of course.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
Honoring those legacy systems, but making sure that they're still serving their purpose.
Right. So this author was looking at how drugs that were approved before 1962, a lot of those were grandfathered in. They didn't need the same level of proof as newer drugs.
Interesting.
So it raises these questions about, how do we respect tradition, but also make sure that those practices are still relevant and effective?
So how did they suggest applying SMART in this context?
Well, they were saying that grandfathering takes on a more nuanced meaning.
Okay.
It's not just blind acceptance. It's really a smart approach to assessing those systems, identifying areas for improvement, and adapting them to meet the needs of a changing world.
So using SMART to kind of bridge the gap between the old and the new.
Yeah.
integrating those valuable lessons from the past with the innovations of the present.
I love that. A bridge across time.
And it really speaks to that importance of continuous learning and adaptation.
It does.
Recognizing that even well-established systems can benefit from fresh perspectives.
Absolutely. And a willingness to embrace change.
Speaking of embracing change,
Yes.
one author brought up this really intriguing idea, smart opposition.
Smart opposition, now I'm curious.
So think about the opposable thumb. It's that remarkable feature that sets us apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's that ability to bring our thumb into opposition with our other fingers that lets us grasp and manipulate and create.
So applying that to like a mental framework.
Exactly.
It's about holding opposing ideas in tension.
Yeah, being able to see the merit in those different viewpoints.
Right. And the author argued that in today's complex world, it's not about choosing sides.
Yeah.
It's about being able to kind of thumb those different perspectives,
Okay.
examine them, question them, synthesize them.
To arrive at a more holistic understanding.
Exactly. And to adapt and evolve as new information comes to light.
So being open to changing our minds as we learn and grow.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating that flexibility and openness, recognizing that our understanding is constantly evolving.
It's especially relevant, I think, in a world where everything feels so polarized.
It is.
You know, we're so quick to label people or ideas as right or wrong that we miss the nuance.
And the complexity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And smart opposition encourages us to move beyond those labels.
It does.
And engage in more thoughtful dialogue.
It's about seeking understanding.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to win an argument.
So building bridges instead of walls.
Beautifully said.
Recognizing that even those we disagree with might have something valuable to offer.
I like that. And on that note, another author delved into this idea of smart reasoning.
Smart reasoning.
So using a critical lens to evaluate not just the information we encounter, but also the reasoning processes behind that information.
So taking a step back and asking, like, why do I believe this?
Right.
How did I come to this conclusion?
Exactly.
Examining those underlying assumptions
And biases.
that shape our understanding.
It's so crucial in a world where misinformation and alternative facts are everywhere.
It really is.
It's about cultivating that inner skeptic,
Yeah.
that voice that questions, that probes, that demands evidence.
Before we just blindly accept something.
Yeah.
So being a more discerning consumer of information.
Yes.
Not just passively absorbing what we're told.
Yeah.
But actively engaging with it.
Evaluating its credibility.
Forming our own informed opinion.
And in doing so, becoming more responsible citizens.
Yeah.
More effective decision makers.
And ultimately more empowered individuals.
Yes. Reclaiming our agency in a world where it feels like we're constantly bombarded with information.
I love that taking back control of our own narrative.
Yeah.
Our own understanding of the world.
Absolutely. And speaking of narratives, one author explored the idea of using writing as a justice compass.
Oh, wow.
A way to kind of navigate the complexities of life and make sense of our experiences.
So how did they connect writing to this idea of justice?
Well, what's interesting is they talk about the biological and psychological aspects of being human.
Okay.
So on a biological level, writing actually taps into our reward system.
Interesting.
The release of dopamine and serotonin.
So it makes us feel good.
It does. It can motivate us and create that sense of satisfaction.
Like when you finish a challenging piece of writing.
Exactly. And then on a psychological level, writing allows us to process our experiences, make sense of our emotions, and construct our own narratives about the world.
So it's not just putting words on paper.
Right.
It's a tool for self-discovery.
Exactly.
On self-reflection.
And personal growth.
Finding our voice and expressing our unique perspective.
And in doing so, connecting with others, building relationships.
Yeah.
And contributing to a greater understanding of the human experience.
It's the power of storytelling.
It really is.
To shape our understanding of ourselves and the world.
And within that tapestry of stories, one of the most powerful threads is empathy.
Absolutely.
Another source talked about the importance of integrating empathy into our design process, whether we're designing a product, a system, or even how we approach our interactions with other people.
Because even the most brilliant idea can fail.
Yeah.
If it doesn't consider the needs of the people it's meant to serve.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this author highlighted the practice of fasting during Ramadan as a way to cultivate not only self-discipline, but also empathy for those who are less fortunate.
A reminder that our actions have a ripple effect.
I do.
And that even our personal choices can have a broader impact.
So moving beyond that, me focus.
Yeah.
And recognizing that we're all part of something larger.
It's about cultivating that interconnectedness and responsibility.
And, on that note, another author explored smart shepherding as a cyclical process.
Oh, interesting.
Much like the changing seasons.
Yeah.
So spring representing birth and growth, summer, the peak of thriving, autumn, the introspective harvest, and winter, a time of stillness and reflection.
I love that analogy.
It really reflects the ebb and flow of life, doesn't it?
It does.
And this author emphasizes how those seasonal shifts can actually enhance personal development. Just as nature has its cycles, so do our individual journeys.
So it's about recognizing those cycles.
Yes.
Honoring them.
And
using them to our advantage.
Exactly.
Finding that rhythm, that balance between pushing forward and taking time to pause and reflect.
Those times of stillness are just as important as those times of growth and action.
Absolutely. And within those cycles, within that journey,
yes,
one of the most vital elements is the wisdom of the heart.
It is. And another author actually connected heart rate variability, which is a measure of the heart's flexibility and resilience with this concept of dil se.
Dil se.
Which means from the heart in Hindi.
Oh, wow. So leading with the heart.
Yes.
Making decisions that are aligned with our deepest values and intentions.
Precisely. And they argue that dil se is not just a feeling.
Okay.
It's a guiding principle, a way of being in the world that fosters empathy, compassion, and authenticity.
So integrating that heart wisdom into our daily lives.
Yes.
Our work, our relationships.
Finding that sweet spot between the wisdom of the head and the wisdom of the heart.
Blending logic and emotion, reason and intuition.
To create a more holistic and fulfilling life.
And that's what smart shepherding is all about, isn't it?
It really is.
It's using this framework to navigate the complexities of life, to become our best selves.
Yeah.
And to make a positive impact on the world.
It's a journey of growth, of self-discovery, and of continual learning.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to see how these principles can be applied in so many different ways.
It is.
From personal goal setting to even navigating complex systems.
And what really stood out to me is how smart shepherding isn't just about checking things off a list.
Right.
It's about cultivating this mindset of growth and evolution.
Becoming more aware, more adaptable, more intentional.
And that brings us back to that metaphor we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
The elephant, the bird, and the heart.
I love that one.
Remember, the elephant represents stability.
That grounding.
The bird, that broader perspective.
Yeah.
And the heart reminds us to act with intention and compassion.
So, listener, as we wrap up this deep dive,
yes,
I really want you to reflect on those three elements in your own life.
Yeah.
Where's your elephant, your bird, and are you leading with your heart?
Such powerful questions to ponder.
And remember, smart shepherding isn't a one-time thing.
No, it's not.
It's an ongoing process.
Of self-reflection, learning, and growth.
Absolutely. It's about embracing the journey with all its twists and turns.
Yeah.
And using these principles to really navigate the complexities of life.
And become our best selves.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe along the way,
you'll
even discover a few new smart acronyms of your own.
The possibilities are endless.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So as you go out into the world, listener, keep that smart mindset engaged.
Observe, analyze, reflect, and adapt.
And most importantly, never stop learning and growing.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And remember, the journey is the destination.